They say, if someone cares, they'll stay. But what they don't say is how often people leave quietly, not out of indifference, but out of overwhelm. In a world that demands explanations, why do some people disappear without giving one? Why does distance feel safer than clarity? Why does silence feel easier than saying, I'm not okay? There is a silent epidemic of withdrawal, not dramatic exits, not slammed doors, just slow fading, shorter replies, longer pauses, an emotional dimming that few know how to name. And beneath that retreat is rarely cruelty. It is protection tonight. This is what will be explored, the psychology behind those who withdraw without explaining why. Let's begin. Withdrawal rarely begins with a goodbye. It begins with a delay, a message answered hours later instead of minutes, a conversation shortened, a call that goes unanswered, not out of anger, but out of fatigue. From the outside, it can look small, ordinary, life getting busy. But inside, something has shifted. You begin offering less, fewer details, fewer emotions, fewer invitations into your inner world. Not because you have stopped caring, but because staying present feels heavier than it used to. There is no dramatic conflict, no final argument, just a quiet dimming. You notice yourself withdrawing from topics that once felt easy. You respond politely, but not deeply. You listen, but do not reveal. You stay connected, but at a safer distance. And the person on the other end may sense it. They might ask, are you okay? And you might say, yeah, just tired, which is not entirely untrue, because withdrawal often feels like exhaustion before it feels like escape. It is the nervous system conserving energy, reducing exposure, lowering emotional input before it becomes overwhelming. The subtle fade is not about punishment, it is about regulation, a body and mind attempting to create space, quietly, without having to explain why that space is needed. Long before you began fading from conversations, you may have learned that closeness was unpredictable. There may have been moments when you expressed hurt, and the response felt overwhelming. A raised voice, a defensive reaction, a shift in tone that turned your vulnerability into a problem to be solved or silenced. Or perhaps your distress was met with something quieter, but equally destabilizing: dismissal. You're overthinking. It's not a big deal. Just move on. When your emotional reality is minimized often enough, something inside you recalibrates. You begin to measure how much of yourself is safe to show. You learn that revealing too much can create friction, that expressing confusion can invite chaos, that asking for reassurance can lead to withdrawal. So distance becomes a form of control. If you step back first, you cannot be pushed away. If you limit exposure, you limit impact. Retreat begins to feel strategic, like lowering the volume before it becomes unbearable. In early environments where emotional intensity felt unsafe, whether through conflict or invalidation, the nervous system adapts. It discovers that space reduces harm, distance steadies the ground, and over time, what began as a survival strategy can become an automatic reflex. You withdraw not because you do not care, but because, somewhere in your memory, closeness once carried risk. Not all withdrawal is a decision. Some of it is reflex. When relational tension rises, even subtly, the body does not wait for logic. A change in tone, a delayed reply, a conversation that feels emotionally loaded. Before you consciously interpret it, your nervous system has already begun scanning for threat. Humans evolved to survive in groups. Belonging meant safety. Rejection meant vulnerability. So the brain treats social instability as significant, sometimes even as dangerous. For some nervous systems, that perceived threat activates fight. For others, it activates freeze. The freeze response is not dramatic. It does not shout. It quiets. Heart rate shifts. Breathing becomes shallow. Thoughts narrow or scatter. Words feel heavy, difficult to access. You may feel emotionally distant in that moment, not because you lack feeling, but because feeling has become overwhelming. Silence becomes a shield. Avoidance becomes regulation. The mind may want to explain. The heart may want to clarify. But the body chooses stillness because stillness once reduced harm. This is not indifference. Is biology attempting to preserve connection by minimizing disruption? Withdrawal can look like apathy from the outside, but inside, it often feels like containment, holding back emotional intensity so it does not spill into something uncontrollable. Silence, in these moments, is not absence, it is self-preservation. From the outside, withdrawal can look calm, composed, rational, unbothered, but inside, it is rarely quiet. Before the silence, there is often a surge. Too many thoughts arriving at once. Emotions stacking on top of each other like waves that do not recede. A conversation that lingers in your mind long after it ends. You replay tone. You question your reactions. You imagine being misunderstood. Overstimulation does not always look like noise. Sometimes it is subtle, a feeling that your emotional capacity has been exceeded. That one more question, one more demand, one more misunderstanding might tip the balance. Shame often threads through it. Why can't you handle this? Why does this feel like too much? So you retreat before the flood becomes visible. You choose distance instead of escalation. You offer minimal responses instead of risking intensity. You step back to contain what feels uncontainable, and to the person watching, it can seem sudden, but the storm has been building internally for some time. Outward calm can mask inward turbulence. A steady voice can conceal a racing mind. A simple, "I'm fine," can sit on top of emotional static that never found. Language, withdrawal is often the final stage of overwhelm, not because nothing is happening, but because too much is. Withdrawal can protect you. It can create space, lower stimulation, reduce emotional exposure. But distance without explanation rarely exists in isolation. It echoes. When you pull back quietly, the other person is left to interpret the silence. And in the absence of clarity, the mind fills the gap. Did I do something wrong? Are they losing interest? Are they upset? Unexplained distance can unintentionally transfer the anxiety you were trying to manage. And while you may feel temporary relief, something else begins to form. Loneliness, not the loud kind, not the kind that demands attention, the quiet kind, the kind that settles in slowly as connection thins. You may scroll through old conversations and feel the warmth that once flowed more freely. You may miss the version of yourself that spoke without hesitation. You may wish the other person understood your overwhelm without you having to translate it, but without explanation. Withdrawal can be mistaken for indifference, and misinterpretation creates its own distance. over time, regret can surface gently. Not because you were wrong to need space, but because the space grew without words. Protection, when silent, can look like rejection, and sometimes, the cost of unexplained distance is not the separation itself. It is the quiet realization that you never meant to push anyone away. There comes a moment, often small, almost imperceptible, when you begin to notice the pattern, the delay, the emotional dimming, the instinct to disappear. Instead of judging it, you pause. What if withdrawal is not a flaw? What if it is a signal? For years, the retreat may have felt automatic, something that simply happened when things became too intense. But awareness introduces space, and space changes everything. You begin to observe the sensation before the fade, the tightness in your chest, the mental fatigue, the feeling of being emotionally saturated. And instead of acting immediately on the impulse to withdraw, you name it. I feel overwhelmed. I need a moment. This feels like too much. Naming the retreat does not eliminate it, but it slows it down. Self-awareness interrupts the reflex. It creates a small gap between feeling and action. And in that gap, choice begins to grow. Withdrawal shifts from unconscious escape to conscious information. It becomes data about your limits, about your sensitivity, about the point where connection turns into overload. And when you see it clearly, the shame begins to soften. You are not broken for needing space. You are responsive to your nervous system. The turning point is not forcing yourself to stay. It is recognizing why you leave. There is a way to remain without disappearing for a long time. It may have felt like two opposing choices, stay and drown, or leave and breathe. But presence does not have to mean self-abandonment. Staying while overwhelmed begins with pacing, not forcing yourself to endure more than your system can hold, not pretending you are unaffected. Simply acknowledging the internal weather without letting it dictate the entire climate of the relationship. You might say, I'm feeling a little overloaded right now. You might say, I care about this. I just need a moment. You might say nothing dramatic at all. Just slow the conversation instead of ending it. Grounded communication is not loud. It does not demand. It informs. It allows your sensitivity to exist alongside connection, rather than in opposition to it. Overwhelm does not have to lead to disappearance. It can lead to boundary. It can lead to breath. It can lead to slower, steadier engagement. Staying does not mean suppressing your nervous system. It means responding to it with gentleness. You learn that you can feel flooded and still remain partially present, that you can need space without vanishing entirely. Sensitivity and connection do not cancel each other out. When integrated, they create something steadier than avoidance ever could. There is a quiet courage in staying long enough to explain, not in over-justifying, not in defending your sensitivity, but in simply saying, I need space. For someone who has learned to withdraw silently, those words can feel enormous, exposing, vulnerable, as if naming the need might make it heavier. But explanation is not weakness. It is clarity. When you say, I'm overwhelmed, instead of disappearing, you allow connection to breathe. You offer context instead of confusion. You replace mystery with honesty, and honesty, even when it includes distance, is softer than silence. You are not obligated to explain every fluctuation in your mood. You are not required to narrate every internal shift. But when retreat becomes a pattern, naming it can be an act of care, both for yourself and for the people who care about you. I'm not pulling away from you. I'm regulating. I'm not losing interest. I'm overstimulated. I need quiet, not separation. These sentences are small bridges. They do not eliminate sensitivity. They do not erase overwhelm, but they prevent misunderstanding from growing roots. If this reflection felt familiar, if something inside you recognized the pattern of quiet withdrawal, you are not alone in it. Many people retreat not because they care less, but because they feel more than they know how to hold. If you'd like to stay connected to a space where these hidden patterns are explored gently, where sensitivity, distance, and connection are understood without judgment, you are welcome here. And if you feel comfortable, you can share your experience below, not because you must, but because your words might help someone else feel less alone in their retreat. Take care of yourself. You deserve gentleness, even in your need for space.